And you can see there this morning, the jobs report, monthly jobs report came in. 171,000 jobs created in October. That was better than expectations. That kind of caps off really 3 decent months for jobs growth. Unemployment rate ticked up to 7.9%. Not a very good number, but of course better than where we were a year ago, 2 years ago, all that. However, this morning on the Markets Hub, what we're going to focus on is the picture for youth employment, especially given Tuesday's big election. What are the youth of this country looking at? We have Paul Conway with us, who used to be Chief of Staff at the Department of Labor. Now he runs Generation Opportunity. Paul, I want to thank you for the opportunity for us to spend a few minutes this morning. What did you make of these numbers this morning, especially as it pertains to, kids out of college, kids in high school, to the youth vote there?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to first take a look at the numbers. And so at 171,000 jobs, really what you need are 150,000 jobs at a minimum per month just to absorb new workers into the American workforce. So 171,000 jobs is a mixed bag. 7.9% is not an unemployment level that anybody would celebrate in their right mind. For young Americans, here's what the issue is. Today, the unemployment number is 12% for young Americans. There are an additional 1.7 million young Americans who are not counted in the number. And if you were to take that number, the labor force participation rate, and factor it into the 12%, you'd actually have today an unemployment level for young Americans of 16.5%. And that is the thing that will create a political reality for those who are going to vote next Tuesday, because in their lives, they don't actually see the change that has been promised.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see right now, we're pulling up some of the numbers you gave us on youth unemployment, breaking it down by some of the various demographics. You guys calculated these numbers. These are non-seasonally adjusted numbers, right? This 12% for unemployment rate?
Yeah, that's correct. That's all based on BLS data, directly from BLS this morning. Non-seasonally adjusted. That's correct.
Yeah. So now, look, 8%, you're right, 8% is not a great unemployment rate. 12% obviously much worse, and for some of those numbers we just saw, the numbers are even worse. What kind of a reality does that create? How bad, we always hear about, college kids can't get jobs. How bad is it out there?
Well, according to Rutgers University, 50% of college grads ages 18 to 29 are either unemployed or underemployed. But then you have all the things that we all know now as anecdotal data that is actually supported by actual data. So when you hear stories about people moving back in with their parents or with other family members, that's correct. In our survey, 84% of young Americans indicated that the poor economy has impacted them, including changing their lifestyle and changing where they live. They're taking on more roommates, they're downsizing, but also on fundamental important things. 23% are putting off getting married, 31% are putting off having kids, 26% are putting off going to more education or grad school. So when you take a look at the demographic itself, I think you can honestly say this is a group of young Americans whose careers and dreams have been interrupted. But the other thing is this: when you look at them as a cohort in the labor force, you're looking at a generation that's been denied skills that they need in order to compete successfully here at home, but also on the world stage with workforces in China and India.
Yeah, so look, and I'm certainly not trying to get you to endorse a candidate or say who's better for the, but how do youth go to the election polls on Tuesday and see this election? Does either of these candidates, what you're talking about seems like pretty broad scope, pretty long-term issues. Is there anything that youth should be looking for in a short-term vote on Tuesday to kind of change their situation?
Yeah, I think full credit should be given to the generation, and here's what we know. Okay, they have contributed a significant amount to the country already. This is the generation that witnessed 9/11. They've put on the uniform, they've served in 2 wars, they helped rebuild after Katrina, and now they're helping rebuild after Sandy. So they understand what their role is and what they contribute to the country, what they're looking for, and we're very convinced of this. We communicate with 4 million every day. 1 billion posts on our Facebook pages over the past year have been viewed by young Americans on issues like the economy and youth unemployment. When they go to that voting booth, what they're going to ask is, what does the next 4 years look like based on the last 4? And we think they're wise enough to come up with their own decision. They know that free markets and less regulation create more jobs. And we actually think that's the direction they're headed in. We think the president knows that. That's why it explains why they've campaigned so heavily on college campuses in the past year.
Hey, it's funny. I couldn't help but think. The name of your outfit is Generation Opportunity, but when I look at it, I start wondering: is this a generation lost opportunity?
Well, let me put it like this. We don't think they're lost, but what they are is they're frustrated and they want to get into the arena. I think the president's policies have been a disservice to them, and I think they know that. And I think as Americans, we need to step back and say, hey, look, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. If your American workforce has nearly 16% of the intellectual and creative capital sitting on the sidelines, and we're trying to compete on the world stage, what does this mean for the United States 5 and 10 years from now? And I think when the generation looks at themselves, they say, hey, wait a minute, we can do better, and we don't have to settle for this. And I think as a generation, they understand that. I think as individuals, they understand it even more.